The strange thing about desperation is that it makes impossible offers sound reasonable. The hospital bill trembled in my hands as I stood beneath the buzzing fluorescent lights of St. Matthew's Medical Center. 3 separate charges were circled in red ink. The total sat at the bottom of the page like a cruel joke. $11,423. I read the number 3 times, hoping it would somehow shrink. It never did. Outside, rain tapped softly against the glass doors. People hurried through the parking lot carrying umbrellas and coffee cups, moving on with lives that probably didn't revolve around overdue medical bills and impossible decisions. I envied them. My father had always been the strongest person I knew. A high school football coach. The kind of man who never missed a game, never forgot a birthday, never complained about pain. Then 6 months ago everything changed. Now most of my evenings were spent sitting beside a hospital bed pretending everything would be okay. Pretending because that was easier than admitting I had no idea how to save us. My phone buzzed in my purse. The screen showed another overdue payment reminder. I deleted it without opening it. At 27 years old, I taught 3rd grade in a public elementary school outside Manhattan. I loved my students. I loved seeing their faces light up when they finally understood something difficult. What I didn't love was realizing that a teacher's salary wasn't enough to fight reality. I stepped outside into the cool evening air. Rain misted across the sidewalk. My old Honda Civic sat alone beneath a flickering parking lot light. I reached into my bag for my keys when a long black Rolls-Royce pulled quietly to the curb. I froze. Cars like that didn't stop for people like me. The rear door opened. A woman stepped out wearing a cream-colored coat that probably cost more than my monthly rent. Silver hair framed a face that carried the kind of confidence money couldn't buy unless it had been inherited for generations. She looked directly at me. Not past me. At me. "Emily Carter?" she asked. Her voice was calm and elegant. I glanced behind me to make sure she wasn't talking to someone else. Yes. A faint smile appeared on her lips. Good. I was hoping I found the right person. Every instinct told me to leave. But something about her made me stay. "Do I know you?" I asked. "No," she said. "But I know quite a lot about you." My stomach tightened. She took a step closer. "Your father is recovering upstairs." I blinked. "How do you know that?" "Because I make it my business to know important things." The answer should have worried me more than it did. Instead, curiosity pushed me forward. "What do you want?" The woman studied me for a moment, almost like she was comparing me to a memory. Then she said something so unexpected that I honestly thought I'd misheard her. "I'd like to offer you $5,000. My breath caught. "For what?" Her smile widened slightly. "To pretend you're my son's wife for one day." The rain seemed to disappear. The traffic noise faded. For a second, the entire world went silent. I stared at her, waiting for the punchline. It never came. Then she tilted her head and added 5 words that made my pulse stumble. "Because I've been looking for you." I should have walked away. Every sensible thought in my head screamed that accepting a conversation with a stranger who arrived in a Rolls-Royce outside a hospital was how people ended up regretting things. Yet somehow, 5 minutes later, I was sitting across from her in the hospital cafe, staring at a cup of coffee I had not touched. The woman introduced herself as Evelyn Moretti. The name meant nothing to me, but the way people reacted when she entered the room certainly did. Nurses smiled nervously. Staff members stepped aside without being asked. Even the manager personally delivered her coffee. Evelyn noticed me watching. "You are wondering why everyone knows who I am." "I am wondering a lot of things," I admitted. "Good. Intelligent people ask questions." She folded her hands neatly on the table. "The first thing you should know is that I am completely serious." I let out a nervous laugh. "About the wife part?" "Especially the wife part." I rubbed my forehead. "This sounds insane." "It probably does." "Probably." For the first time she smiled. A genuine smile. "Trust me, Emily. Compared to my son, this is the most normal thing that will happen all week." That answer somehow raised more questions than it solved. I looked out the window. Rain continued sliding down the glass. "Why me?" I finally asked. Evelyn became quiet. Not uncomfortable. Thoughtful. "Because my son needs someone exactly like you. You do not even know me." "I know enough." Her answer came too quickly. You teach third grade. You volunteer twice a month at the community reading program. You spend nearly every free evening with your father. 3 years ago, you returned a wallet containing $800 even though nobody would have known if you kept it. My stomach tightened. How do you know all that? I told you. I know important things. I was no longer sure whether I should feel flattered or concerned. Probably both. Look, I said carefully. Even if I considered this completely ridiculous offer, what exactly would I have to do? Attend a family event tomorrow evening. And pretend to be married? Correct. For one day. One day. That is it. Evelyn nodded. That is it. I stared at her. The simplicity somehow made it harder to believe. Your son agreed to this? The silence that followed gave me my answer. He has no idea, does he? Evelyn sighed. Not yet. That sounds like a problem. It usually is. Before I could respond, her phone vibrated against the table. She glanced at the screen. For the first time, something changed in her expression. Not fear. Not worry. Anticipation. Interesting timing, she murmured. What? She slowly turned the phone toward me. A photograph filled the screen. The man standing beside a black SUV looked like he belonged on the cover of a magazine rather than a family photo. Dark hair. Sharp features. Cold blue-gray eyes. Expensive suit. Zero trace of a smile. Even through a picture he looked intimidating. Emily, Evelyn said softly. Meet my son, Damien. I swallowed. Something about that face made my pulse quicken. Then Evelyn added the one sentence that made me nearly choke on my coffee. And if we are very lucky, he will not fire all of us when he finds out what I have. Done. I spent the entire next day convincing myself I was not actually going to do it. By lunchtime, I had rejected the idea 12 separate times. By 3 o'clock, I had accepted it 13. The problem was not the money anymore. The problem was curiosity. Evelyn Moretti was hiding something. I could feel it. And every time I looked at the stack of medical bills sitting on my kitchen counter, my practical side became a little louder than my common sense. At 6 that evening, a black sedan arrived outside my apartment building. The driver never introduced himself. He simply stepped out, opened the rear door and said, Miss Carter. That was apparently enough information. 20 minutes later, Manhattan's crowded streets disappeared behind us. Glass towers gave way to gated properties and winding private roads. Then I saw the estate. Calling it a house felt ridiculous. The place looked like something out of a movie. Iron gates. Stone fountains. Acres of perfectly trimmed grounds. My entire apartment building could have fit inside the front lawn. The car rolled to a stop beneath a covered entrance. Before I could gather my thoughts, another woman appeared. Miss Carter, this way. She guided me through hallways lined with artwork and crystal chandeliers. Everything smelled faintly of fresh flowers and expensive furniture polish. The silence was almost intimidating. You seem nervous, she said politely. Is it that obvious? Only a little. That was a lie. It was completely obvious. We entered a large sitting room. Evelyn stood near a fireplace, elegant as always. Her smile brightened when she saw me. You came. I am still trying to figure out why. You will. Somehow, that answer annoyed me more than reassured me. Please tell me your son knows I exist now. Evelyn winced slightly. About that. That is not a good reaction. No, it is not. Before I could ask another question, the atmosphere changed. It happened instantly. Footsteps echoed somewhere beyond the hallway. Staff members straightened. Conversations stopped. Nobody announced his arrival. Nobody needed to. I felt it before I saw him. The room seemed to tighten around a single presence. Then, Damien Moretti walked through the doorway. Photographs had not done him justice. He was taller than I expected. Broad shoulders beneath a charcoal suit. Dark hair perfectly styled. Those blue-gray eyes immediately scanned the room with calm precision. Nothing about him appeared rushed. Everything about him appeared controlled. His gaze landed on me. Stopped. The silence stretched. 1 second. 2. 3. Then he looked at his mother. Who is she? His voice was low and steady. Evelyn lifted her chin. Her name is Emily. That does not answer my question. I suddenly understood why people listen when he spoke. He did not raise his voice. He did not need to. Evelyn folded her arms. She is joining us tomorrow. Damien looked back at me. Why? Nobody answered immediately, which turned out to be a mistake, because the moment he noticed the hesitation, his expression hardened. Mother. Evelyn took a breath. She is your wife. The room went completely silent. Forgot how to breathe. Damien did not react right away. Somehow that was worse. He simply stared at his mother, then at me, then back at his mother. Finally, he spoke 4 words that made every person in the room freeze. Send her away. Now. The next evening felt unreal from the moment I stepped into the ballroom. Crystal light spilled from chandeliers high above us, turning the polished marble floors into mirrors. Conversations floated through the air alongside soft piano music and the clink of expensive glassware. I had attended school fundraisers before. This was something else entirely. Men discussed investments worth more than entire neighborhoods. Women wore jewelry that probably cost more than my apartment building. And somehow I was standing in the middle of it pretending I belonged. Smile, Damien murmured beside me. You look like you are preparing for a final exam. I would rather take a final exam. I believe you. We continued through the crowd. Every few feet someone stopped to greet him. Powerful people. Influential people. People who immediately turned their attention toward me. Most were polite. Some were curious. A few looked openly suspicious. I was beginning to understand what Damien meant when he said everyone watched him. They were not simply watching him. They were evaluating every detail around him, including me. Relax, he said quietly without looking at me. You are doing fine. You say that like you can read my mind. Your expression is very loud. I almost smiled. Almost. Then a deep voice interrupted us. Damien Moretti. A man in his 60s approached carrying a drink. Silver hair. Expensive tuxedo. The confident posture of someone accustomed to being important. His eyes landed on me immediately. And this must be the mysterious wife. Something in Damien's expression changed. Not dramatically, just enough for me to notice. Emily Carter, Damien said. Emily, this is Senator Richard Holloway. We exchanged polite greetings. For a few moments everything seemed normal. Then the senator smiled at me in a way that felt slightly uncomfortable. You must be enjoying the benefits of this family. I blinked. I am sorry? Well, he said lightly. A young schoolteacher suddenly appearing beside one of the wealthiest men in New York tends to attract attention. The words sounded harmless. The meaning underneath them did not. Heat climbed into my face. Around us, several nearby conversations seemed to grow quieter. People were listening, waiting. I opened my mouth, unsure what to say. Before I could respond, Damien set down his glass. The sound was soft, yet somehow it cut through the entire moment. Senator, he said calmly. Emily was helping children long before she met me. The older man's smile faded slightly. Damien continued. And she has contributed more to her community than most people who spend their lives chasing headlines. Complete silence settled around us. Not awkward silence. Respectful silence. The kind that appears when someone powerful has spoken and everyone understands it. The senator cleared his throat. Of course. I meant no offense. Good, Damien replied. Because none was taken. For the first time all evening I looked directly at him. He still faced the senator. His expression remained perfectly controlled. Yet he had stepped slightly closer to me without realizing it. A small movement. Barely. Noticeable. But enough. And for reasons I could not explain, my pulse suddenly felt unsteady. Then across the ballroom, I noticed a man standing near the entrance watching us. Not Damien. Not the senator. Me. The moment our eyes met, he pulled out his phone and quietly walked away. For the rest of that day, I could not stop thinking about my father. All those years, he had never once mentioned Evelyn Moretti. Never mentioned a snowstorm. Never mentioned saving anyone. To him, it had simply been the right thing to do. That realization somehow made me love him even more. By late afternoon, I returned to the hospital carrying fresh coffee and a stack of crossword puzzles. My father sat propped against his pillows watching a baseball game on television. "You look tired," he said immediately. "Thanks, Dad. You always know exactly what to say." He smiled. "Comes with experience." For a few minutes we talked about ordinary things. Doctors, weather, baseball standings. Normal conversations that felt increasingly precious. Then I finally asked, "Dad, do you remember helping a woman during a snowstorm 15 years ago?" His expression changed instantly. Not dramatically, just enough. "Who told you about that?" "So it happened." He looked toward the window. "A long time ago. You never told me." "There was never a reason." That sounded exactly like him. "The woman was Evelyn Moretti." He nodded slowly. "I learned her name later. She spent years trying to find you." His eyebrows rose. "Why?" I laughed softly. That was my reaction too. For a moment neither of us spoke. Then he shook his head. "Emily, kindness is not supposed to create debts." The sentence settled heavily in my chest. Because that was the difference between my father and almost everyone else I had met lately. He helped people because they needed help, not because he expected anything in return. When I left the hospital that evening, a black sedan was already waiting outside. Damien stood beside it. His suit jacket was gone. His sleeves rolled neatly to his forearms. Somehow he looked less intimidating and more human than usual. "How is he?" he asked. Still worried about everyone except himself. Damien nodded as though he understood perfectly. We drove in silence for several minutes. The city lights blurred beyond the windows. Finally I reached into my purse and removed an envelope. "What is that?" he asked. "The payment." His eyes moved toward the envelope. "The $5,000. You are giving it back?" "I never wanted money from your family." He looked genuinely surprised. "Your father's medical bills. I will figure it out." "Emily." "No," I held the envelope toward him. "Your mother wanted to thank my father." "She already did." The car became quiet. Damien stared at the envelope for several seconds before taking it. But instead of looking satisfied, he seemed troubled. "Most people would keep it. Most people are probably smarter than me." A faint smile appeared. "No," his voice softened. "I think your father raised you exactly right." Something inside my chest tightened unexpectedly. The city skyline reflected in the window beside him. For the first time since we met, Damien Moretti was not looking at me like a temporary problem his mother created. He was looking at me like someone he genuinely respected. Then his phone vibrated. He glanced at the screen. Whatever message appeared erased the warmth from his expression. Slowly, he lifted his eyes to mine. "Emily." My stomach dropped. "What happened?" His answer came quietly. "Someone just offered a very large amount of money for information about where you are staying tonight."